Well, good morning, everyone. This is Eileen Walker. I want to thank you for joining us today. And we're going to be presenting our AURP virtual seminar, Retooling Your Park to Increase Relevance and Involvement. And first of all, I'd like to talk just a minute about AURP. And our organization is comprised of university-related research, science, and tech parks from really all around the world. Our parks are where industry, academia, and government meet together for economic development. And part of the work that we do and that is done in all of our parks is supported by our AURP corporate partners. We want to take just a second and thank them. Those corporate partners really support everything that we do, and that's the King Abdullah University of Science and Technology, Wexford Science and Technology, University Financing Foundation, BWR, Forest City, Whiting Turner, Patel Technology Partnership, Perkins & Will, BioRealty, and DDM. They are our good friends and partners in everything that we do, so thank you very much, all of our corporate partners. Now, before we get started, we just have to do a little bit of letting everybody know how everything works. So we will be presenting today, and at the lower right-hand section of your screen, you're going to see a little box, and that's for you to send questions or technical difficulties or anything like that to Jolene Campbell, our AURP marketing manager, and she's going to be manning the wires for us and making sure everything works okay. So to get started, I'd like to introduce our speakers, and our first speaker today is Mason Ailstock. And he is Vice President for Business Development for the Research Triangle Foundation. And what he really does is he leads business development at RTP, Research Triangle Park. And his focus for the past couple of years has been the development of a new 100-acre project that's at the core of the park. I've been talking a lot with Mason about all the work and the exciting things that are happening at RTP. So I think this is going to be really informative for everybody. We're also going to be visiting with Sanjeev Patel, and he is Associate Principal from Duda, Paine Architects. Sanjeev and Mason have been working really closely together to try to retool, rethink what's going on at Research Triangle Park. And he's also been working on some other really exciting projects, including the Cox Corporate Campus in Atlanta. So welcome, Mason and Sanjeev, and thank you for being with us today. So Mason, I know that we've spoken a bunch of times. I know we visited at Bioparks and we visited down in Boca about the things that you've been doing, the travels. I know that you and Bob Jolis from Research Triangle Park have been out and about on probably every airline imaginable, and that you have been trying to really grasp and really learn what is working on, at research parks, what the focus is, and what is really the thing that companies are looking for right now, companies and employees, and hopefully you can share your thoughts with us.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Eileen, and thank you to everyone that's taking the time to join us today. I've prepared a brief overview to provide some context to lead our discussion really around the how and the why RTP is focused on retooling or reimagining what we do and moving the park forward. It's also important for us to look at and understand how we operate as a university research park, and I hope this overview will give us a good jump off for the discussion. So we'll go ahead and jump in. All right, let's see. So, shortly after I arrived at the Research Triangle Park, this article was published by New Republic, and it was actually picked up by a number of thought leaders, including Richard Florida, who is the author of The Rise of the Creative Class. Now, at the time, the leaders of RTP already knew and were looking into development strategies to reinvigorate the park, but, a headline like this really can grab your attention. So in addition to some of the public media challenges that we faced questioning the park's relevance to the future of innovation, we also really recognized several other challenges that we needed to face head-on. The first of those really is competition, something that we all have, both from new and existing research parks that are throughout the U.S., throughout North America, but also globally, because everyone is pushing and wanting to drive and continue to change and evolve. Another challenge is the workforce. We all know that where and how people work has and is really evolving. And there are also the major shifts that we see happening in the innovation economy itself. You know, companies are outsourcing more R&D. Companies require much greater flexibility both in their physical space as well as from a lease and a real estate standpoint, the terms that they're looking for. And finally, the smaller companies that are out there comprise a much larger market share of the opportunities that we're seeing within RTP, and these companies really require a much different type of space and terms that we have not traditionally offered here. We also wanted to take the time to go see and meet with the people that were running the places that so many of us often hear about as benchmarks for being highly collaborative and innovative places. So we set up time to be able to go see and meet with them using our networks to have those conversations. We went by in Boston, Kendall Square and the Cambridge Innovation Center, the Stanford Research Park in Palo Alto, and lastly, the Disney Imagineering headquarters in Glendale, California. And what we found was extremely helpful in seeing ourselves more clearly and how we're going to move forward. So touching on each of those, just really quickly for context, Kendall Square, you know, many of us, probably all of us have been there. It's all about the density, right? It's Boston, it's with MIT and other great institutions. It's boasting the Cambridge Innovation Center, and that urbanized feel of vertical buildings and density was really impactful. So from here, you know, we walked away with a question of, is density one of the keys to success in redeveloping RTP? Then we went over to the Stanford Research Park, and it was the complete opposite and looked much more like RTP with spread out office buildings, surface parking lots, and a lot of landscape. I mean, they even had horses that were outside the park, which, you know, everybody that's been in North Carolina knows we have tons of horses out here too. But they're also focused on a risk-tolerant and even a risk-encouraging culture. They have a lot of entrepreneurial activity mixed in with big companies. And what we walked away with there was really the question of, so is culture of a place a key factor in success and moving forward? The last place that we went was the Disney Imagineering headquarters in Glendale. This is the place where dreams are made, literally. The new theme parks and movies and characters are all created here. You know, honestly, we arrived expecting to be greeted by Mickey Mouse and be toured through a wildly creative, collaborative campus, but that was not what we found at all. What we found was a place that was as simple and as flexible as you could possibly imagine, with large black box theaters for testing and production and lighting, open offices located within old warehouse buildings that used to be used as one of the airports with Amelia Earhart in the 1930s, and the buildings were still surrounded by surface parking lots. So there was no magical architecture or lights that were a part of their campus. Now, after talking to the lead Imagineers, we found that even they had to put a Starbucks in to get their people out of their creative spaces inside the buildings to come together for collision opportunities within their campus. But what we did find and what really resonated was the vision and the mission of the Disney Corporation. I mean, really, these people would have worked for Disney if it was located under train tracks because of the company's beliefs, because of what Disney and how they work and treat their employees and see their purpose. So we asked ourselves, is the vision and the spirit of why and how a place does what it does a key to success? So we took all of those ideas along with hundreds of other conversations that we had during that time and really boiled it down to three key points: reconnect, reimagine, and redevelop. So to touch on the first two just very briefly, because it would take much longer than we have to hit all three of them in detail, the reconnect piece is all about getting back to our roots of why RTP was founded and our mission statement, which is three-part: to support education, to create meaningful work through economic development, and to improve the lives of the people of North Carolina. Reimagine is all about how do we build on our wonderful 55-year history and our mission statement in a way that recommits our future to the same level of urgency and collaboration as our founders of RTP had back then. So what does that new calling look like going forward into the next 55 years? And lastly, and what we'll spend the rest of the conversation around, is the redevelop piece. So we recognized that we must redevelop RTP to fulfill our mission, because many of today's job creators need greater density, they need greater access to capital and flexibility and diversity of space that we don't currently offer under our current and historic development model. And we have to do these things really to remain competitive, and we have to adapt. Our goal is really to create an environment that will allow us to continue to be that economic driver for innovation, for the innovation economy in North Carolina and globally. And in our redevelopment, we knew it was important to maintain our attractiveness to existing companies because they've invested here, they've chosen to locate here, and we need to create new opportunities for them to expand. But we also have to broaden the park's appeal to additional types of companies, including those that aren't traditionally found in a research park. But this is our particular approach to achieving the redevelopment goals. We underwent a master plan process, and we identified 3 areas within RTP that were ideal for this mixed-use infill development. So the park is 7,000 acres. There's 200 companies that are here, 5 incubators. People are well spread out. And what we did was identified areas along major vehicular corridors that we could recapture that existing green space and build out a greater level of density. And these 3 areas were identified. The Park Center right there at the center is a 100-acre parcel. It's located right on Interstate 40, which interestingly goes all the way across the country, and that was really the ideal location to begin. So we purchased that property just over a year ago in January of 2014. Now, the Park Center development will feature many types of public gathering spaces in a compact, walkable area. It's going to include the retail and residential that we haven't had in the park before, as well as the existing uses that are found within RTP, like research and development and laboratories. We knew that the development had to be a place that's really inspiring. It had to create new ways of thinking and encourage bold ideas through design. It has to be an authentic place, which is kind of an interesting word, but what we mean by authentic is we don't want or need to be Palo Alto or Boston or Austin or really anywhere else in the world. It needs to be North Carolina, and it needs to be RTP and unique to this place. And that's a lot of what Sanjeev is going to speak to as far as how do we feed those mission and vision and desire for authenticity into the physical design and planning for the Park Center development. It also must be highly collaborative to bring people together, something that we're all very familiar with. And not just from the science and technology fields, but also from the arts and the humanities. We want writers, we want people with lab coats, we want coders and designers, all able to come together and convene for a multitude of reasons, work just being one of them. The other part is just living and doing the things that we all do when we go home and are a part of society and a part of a community. And lastly, but really most importantly, it must be as accessible and as affordable as possible. Because if we create this wonderful place, but people cannot afford to get here to take new risks, to challenge the culture of community and diversity, then we've really failed. This is not a place, as our CEO, Bob Giolis, loves to say, this is not a place for marbles, ferns, and fountains. It's really a place for simple, creative, and flexible design to bring people together. Now taking a look at the master plan that we created using these goals as our markers, here is the Park Center master plan that we landed on. Now, Sanjeev is going to talk about this plan in greater detail, but I do want to point out a few key items. The site itself, as I mentioned, is 100 acres, and it includes a fairly simple lot and block grid layout for the mix of uses of retail, residential, hotels, R&D, office, and civic space. The site, you'll notice, is divided halfway right down the middle with kind of a right and a left or an east and a west by a stream that we're turning into a beautiful public park through a partnership with the county and the state. And this is going to be a central civic amenity for the Triangle and for North Carolina. You'll also notice in looking at the master plan that we are weaving a park system throughout the development to maintain our pastoral open space feel even in the middle of vertical development. And that's a really important element to us because we know we're not going to become downtown Raleigh or any other downtown in a city. We want to have that park and open space green feel pulled within the project as well. Now, on the right side of the plan is all of our new construction, which is totaling around 3 million square feet at build-out. This is the area that we are working on with our development partners. Now, the left side, there we go, we can draw on here so everybody can see what we're talking about. On the left side, that's really our playground. And it includes over 500,000 square feet of 1980s and 1990s office buildings. And these are the types of buildings we all have hidden away somewhere in suburbia, all across the country. This is where really we can experiment. We can try new ideas. We can fail frequently but safely and work to cultivate a new community and a culture for RTP, the Triangle in North Carolina. So with that quick overview of the master plan itself, I'm going to turn it over to Sanjeev to talk more about the plan, explain how the new development side is working in concert with the playground side, and how we're using design to inform it all. Let's turn it over to Sanjeev.
Thanks, Mason. I'm going to basically give a design perspective to what Mason touched on. And generally speaking, I'm going to talk about 3 strategies and go back to the overall. I'm going to talk about 3 strategies. One is going to be obviously redevelopment and new development from the ground up. Second one will be about renovating existing buildings. And then the third one we'll touch on is interior renovations within an existing building that might have more or limited capital investment. But with the master plan for RTP, we had a real opportunity to reintroduce RTP to the marketplace. So we wanted it to be different. And the master plan reflects a desire to create a variety of experiences. We wanted it to feel authentic, like Mason said, and not contrived. And with the authenticity, you know, that can come from a lot of the natural features. And this is a plan that shows some of the stream and grade differences that we have on the site. There's a lot of existing trees, beautiful mature trees that we also wanted to incorporate. And this really informed the placement of many of the open spaces. As you can see here, this really helps shape some of the experiences as you move through the site from one space to the next. So that in the end, we have a network of places that are numbered here on the screen, and each with a different character. But all together, it provides a glue for the whole development. So as you move through the site, it really acts as a way to glue all of the physical buildings together. And we also paired each one of these places with a landmark that together, and those are shown with the red dots on the site plan here. So they, all together, they thread to stitch together the various places within the park center. So I'm going to briefly touch on 3 of these places. First one is going to be the Crossroads here, the Canal Garden, and then the Common Green, which is really the heart of the park center development. The Crossroads is a gathering spot that marks the crossing between the canal that we're developing from the stream and the moment of arrival by road. And it really creates an urban plaza and creates a sense of arrival. It's a vibrant, dense plaza that allows adjacent amenities and functions to spill outside. The second place we're going to touch on is the Canal Garden. This marks a straight stretch in the stream and transforms it into an engaging, pedestrian-centered experience. It's very European, with a tight scale for pedestrians, and really allows for that vibrant public space. And the last open space I'm going to touch on is the heart of the park center itself, the common green area. It's the bridge between the eastern and western halves of the project. It's located strategically to be a park within the park. It takes advantage of the existing greenery and topography to create an amphitheater, a cafe, and even a farmer's market, potentially.
This is just something, Mason, I'm going to chime in here just real quick that I think is important. You know, the idea of this park within a park is something that's really driving our development, that, again, that vertical piece is a critical component, but it's also creating those identities and experiences that are civic-minded, that have really been successful in pulling in the city and county and economic development partners that we have and work with every day to bring companies in. That this public aspect is really, really critical.
Well, Sanjeev, also, you know, in that amphitheater, is that does that take advantage of maybe natural drainage areas where perhaps that would be just a place where the river flows through that you really can't develop on because of the topography? Or could you talk about that for a minute?
Yes, so that's exactly right. Working with our landscape architects, we targeted a certain area that could be used as an open green space that otherwise may not be used, and I think the amphitheater creates a venue for concerts in the park, or something that can be programmed over time, and again, be the catalyst for bringing people together.
Yeah, that's really a great idea.
Yeah, I mean, in the end, we really want this to be a place for people and events and art and ideas to converge, to achieve a critical mass, if you will. I mean, I think really the main point we want to make here is that it's worth investing in the public realm. It's very critical, and there's a strong return on investment. So we often, with each of these public spaces, we also paired it with a landmark. And landmarks are something that we associate with great places in the world. That's a goal that we would like to achieve with the Park Center development. And usually the landmarks reflect the local craft and culture of a place. So in our approach for Park Center, we looked at the vernacular forms of North Carolina. And oftentimes these vernacular structures can be very sculptural and very playful, but in a very functional way. We also looked at the craft traditions of North Carolina. There's a strong craft tradition, basket weaving, art, woodworking. And there's also a vibrant, innovative spirit that has come to define RTP and the scientific community here. When we put all three of these together, this really led us to explore and develop a family of landmark structures, a system, if you will, that could be made up from triangular forms made of wood to reflect the North Carolina traditions, but to do so in a modern, fresh way that's also forward-looking and innovative. And here's an example of one of those structures that we designed as placed in the Crossroads open space that I pointed out. You know, it's a structure that provides shade and identity in an innovative way. So that was the first strategy about redevelopment. The second strategy we're going to talk about really has to do with existing buildings. And many of you have access to older building stock on your campuses. In our case, the 500, 600, 800 buildings that are shown here were part of the IBM campus that were built in the 1980s and 90s. And we looked at the 500 building in particular to see what could we do just as a case study for interventions. We know that bold ideas need a place to grow, and these kinds of interventions could be inspirational. So why not in an old building, right? And this could be anywhere USA. Very monotonous elevation. This is just to show you the existing floor plan. The yellow is circulation space around the perimeter, and the blue were the offices. And so you can see that a lot of these offices didn't have any windows, and that's the way they were built back in the 80s. Well, that's not going to really work today. Everyone wants and sees the value of natural light, and we basically turned this inside out. We still maintain the core, which is here in the center of the building, and there's also existing stairs on both sides. We had to add a third stair in the middle for code reasons to make the building more code compliant. But there's a very flexible circulation space now that runs down the middle, and it allows for flexible office spaces in blue on either side. So that could be divided up for a 100 square foot startup or a 1,000 square foot startup.
Well, Sanjeev, you know, one of the places that I've seen was in Boston. I think it was called WeWork Boston, and also Cambridge Innovation Center. They had, you know, gathering spaces in the center, and how they divided up the, you know, exterior areas was through glass walls. Have you been using glass walls, or is that part of the idea too?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, we didn't really get into the interior design of all of this, but I think that certainly makes sense because that allows for that happen chance sighting across the way for transparency. I think those are very important qualities. But in this exercise, we looked at bringing in daylight and how to make the exterior more innovative and express sort of what was happening inside. And so we started to look at the existing precast exterior. Again, this is very monotonous. This could be anywhere USA. Nothing really that special. But we started to create a kit of parts and like a framework, if you will, a standard framework that could be used to add fabric for wayfinding and to soften the building, add graphics that could reflect the tenants. Another layer could be shade structures, especially if the facade is south-facing.
Well, Sanjeev, on those shade structures, are those operable, or what? How do they work?
They can be. There are operable ones that are on the market. We could put them on a track, as seen in the photograph on the lower right-hand corner, that allows users to actually use them. It's something that you find a lot in residential projects, but it can be used in a commercial setting.
And Eileen, you know, for us at the park, it's really important as we're taking a look at these that desire for flexibility and affordability are key. That these images can be implemented in a lot of different levels of design and cost. So we wanted to be able to convey a reinvention of an existing facility with a multitude of options. So this is what we share with a lot of people that may come in and wish to occupy half of one of these buildings, or perhaps just a quarter or one of the floors, so they can see how their branding could be expressed on the outside, how shading and vegetation could be used to alter how the buildings are viewed, but also not necessarily with an unlimited budget where you really could spend that in order to reinvent architecture.
Yeah, so that's a good point. I mean, this is really a kit of parts, and you could use one of these ideas or all of these ideas, and it really allows flexibility. And so another idea was to use operable garage doors at the ground floor that could engage the ground level and provide connections to nature. Or even PV panels and solar hot water to reflect an eco-minded spirit. And so when all of these things are combined, they begin to create something that's very exciting, something with multiplicity. And we can even start to look at two-story spaces within, double-story spaces that are light wells that can bring in light from above. Or it could be expressed on the outside. Here's a two-story space that really has a strong expression on the outside and lets people know that there's something happening inside. And so we can take an existing building that looks like this in the beginning and transform it into something like this. To create the venue, to create the backdrop for those collision occurrences that Mason talked about to happen. And that's really what innovation is all about, is sharing ideas and bringing people together. So now I'm going to pass it back to Mason. He's going to talk about the 800 building.
Thanks, Sanjeev. So the 800 building there, right to the lower left of your screen, that is the first place that we're going to start, and we have started implementing some of these ideas to evolve our culture. We have renamed that building the Frontier because for us this is really a place where we're calling out all of our pioneers to stake a claim, to build on our shared history that we have across the Triangle in North Carolina and really take on new ideas. So it's been a significant as far as mental capacity, but not an overly significant budget expenditure to really rebrand and develop the Frontier concept so that people can engage with it. Now, as you'll see, I'll flip through these last few images fairly quickly so you can get a sense of it. But we really kept it simple, affordable, and flexible, and started bringing out those ideas to see what it would look like in a reimagined RTP. You know, we purchased a bunch of IKEA furniture. We partnered with a local coffee vendor to provide, you know, the necessary caffeine that we all have to have, whether we're in an enclosed office or in a space like this, as well as several local breweries to provide the frequent libations that are helpful in collaborative activities. And even a communications company to pull in a new fiber line that's actually open on the whole first floor and free to visitors to be able to come in and use this space. Now, the space is intended to really be a stage set, and for those of you that are familiar with a stage set, you know, it's pretty simple, it's straightforward, it's clean, and it's really much like the park has served over these past many years. And what we do on this stage set is we invite the community, the universities, the companies, and the entrepreneurs to come and use the space for meetings, for a break from their office, or for a new location of a team meeting, or even just a conveniently located destination point at the center of the Triangle. You know, with the opening, which actually just launched this and officially opened the Frontier in January January 15th. And a quick highlight on this one, those paintings in the background that you're looking at there, that's actually community art, where when we launched on January 15th, we had over 600 people that came to that. We had an artist there where people could go up. It was almost a requirement that you would go up. I was up there in my suit. You use your hands and finger paint and create this great artwork where everybody plays a role in it. And it really speaks to what we want to do there, right? That this is hands-on, that it's about what you want it to be as a place and a destination and meeting point. And people are really embracing the space, and they're doing what we hope they would do even just a month in, of making it theirs. You know, I mean, they're really sharing new ideas. They're moving in new companies into some of the office space that we have on the upper levels. We've broken out some of those offices to lease out at $300 a month, which includes their furniture and everything, and just month to month. So that's gone really well. And then the whole first floor is being used frequently for programs and events that we're putting on. But it's also being used by our community members and universities that are coming in and using it as another place. So, you know, we've already learned so much that will help us to grow RTP like we've talked about, and it'll really help to inform how we ultimately build out the east side of the Park Center project in partnership with Hines. But most importantly, we really changed the culture and the character of RTP. And circling back to the beginning, you know, we like to jokingly but seriously say nobody's making any dinosaur jokes anymore. So this has really helped to drive that forward and evolve how we approach and view the park going forward. So that wraps up the presentation that we have, and would love to answer any questions that folks on the phone would like to ask.
Well, thank you, Mason. And just to reiterate, the question section is down in the lower right-hand corner, and we do have some questions that have come in. First of all, kudos to RTP from a number of different people that just sort of reimagining the, as someone put it, the monochromatic building to the 80s. It's a huge step forward, and there is some folks wondering though, where did the funds come from to do this, Mason?
Yeah, so the redevelopment, the overall master plan came from us as our foundation in hiring Hines to be our development partner. So those are dollars that we have as a part of our budget in master planning the site. And it was really a reallocation. Before we started the master plan, we spent a lot more money on economic development trips and kind of the normal wine and cheese show that goes on often, and we're still engaged with those conversations, but we had to make thoughtful decisions around how to redirect some of our resources to really pursue intently this master plan effort, and it be at our own doing. So those funds are coming from us on the master plan side. For the Frontier, again, that was where we were very affordable and flexible, again, with IKEA furniture and finding the right partners has been critical. One thing I tell my team all the time is do what you do best and partner for the rest. I don't need to be a brewery. I don't even need to be an entrepreneurial work hub. I need to find the people that do that really well and figure out how to pull them into the Frontier in partnership and allow them to do that great work here within the park. Same thing goes with design and community development. And again, with the Frontier, that's been our budget or through in-kind donations and things like that, different partnerships.
Well, Mason, so one question is that are you redeveloping the buildings? I guess the existing buildings, you repurchased them, at least that's my understanding, but you have some new ones. And are you redeveloping them, first of all, with the new tenants already in place, or are you hoping that, you know, when you do that, I'm certain will happen and the new tenants are going to be lining up. So what are your thoughts on that?
Okay, so the new development side with Hines, that is actually, we're in the phase of where we're designing the infrastructure. We have the master plan and are actively out in partnership with Hines and on our own to pursue tenants for the buildings, headquarters, retailers that are going to use the space, and that's really where that partnership with a development partner, because they know hoteliers and retailers to help us, restaurants to pursue those conversations. So to answer your question, where the rubber meets the road right now is designing the infrastructure. All the stuff that isn't pretty but costs a lot of money underground is being designed and will go in this year and into next year. And then also during that time concurrently, we're out looking and identifying those tenants that would go in the buildings and be able to stand them up.
So let me see how, you know, how I'm understanding this. So the older part where they were repurchased, the new ones you're working with Hines. Maybe you could tell us just a little bit about your agreement, you know, your public-private partnership agreement with Hines and how that worked.
Okay, sure. So we went through an RFP process, settled on Hines to be our development partner. They are acting as our fee developer for the horizontal development and making sure that everything is designed and installed in a way that gets us to the vertical pieces that we need to have. They are then working as our master developer on the development sites, which we own, and we can either contribute them to projects and be a participant in the joint venture. We could sell the land. We could do land leases for projects to go up. So Hines works for us. They lead and advise and guide us as far as how the development should be broken up and the types of uses. and then we are able to make the decision of how to invest and what type of revenue we can generate around those different business models so that we continue to develop funds to reinvest in the overall park. And we will lead, RTP will lead on the marketing communications side, the branding side for the Park Center development. And Hines will be our development, the arm advisor.
Okay. Well, you know, we have a question, and I always wonder about this. So those 300 a month offices, so let's talk about that for a minute. So how big are they? Who is leasing them? What kind of terms do you have? And how do you make the economics work?
Yeah, all excellent questions. The offices are not pretty. They are small and have no windows. They're old IBM offices. They're probably about 100 square feet. I think they're 10 by 10. They are all over the place, particularly on the third floor of the Frontier. The way that we lease them, we have a 2-page lease that we developed with our attorneys. I insisted with them that we not develop a 30-page lease, that we keep it simple. We manage risk, but we also keep it simple and flexible. It's a month-to-month agreement. It comes with the furniture, and internet is to the wall. They actually set up their own phone and whatever level of service of IT that they would like to have. But it comes as a lockable private office for $300 a month. The way that we finance it and the way we view really the whole playground side on the west side is it's an investment that you don't want the numbers to be read at the end of the day on the Excel spreadsheet, but it's more important for us to bring the people and cultivate the community that speaks to the reinvention of the park that we need to have, more than whether I'm going to make $100 per office a month or I'm going to make $300 per office per month. My value right now comes in those people being there and telling other people about it to evolve that conversation. Now, and to answer the question about who's leasing it, we have everybody from Triangle Artworks, which is a nonprofit art organization that's throughout North Carolina that works to cultivate local artists and the work that they do. They do paint studios on the first floor and sculpting lessons and all kinds of cool stuff. We're partnering with Durham Technical Community College, which is really interesting. So it's our local community college. They do all kinds of things from massage therapy, where they've asked to be able to come out. Their students have to have credit hours, hands-on credit hours. And we've invited them to come out and then be able to shoot. Yeah, that's a good one. That's for free. We've invited them to come out, and then we can overlap that with a happy hour or just invite the companies to be able to come in, and everybody wins, right? And then we also do have some IT companies that are in there and looking to start and spin up. So it's really that diversity that we desire, that it's not all IT, it's not all humanities, it's not all nonprofits. It's a good mix of pulling those folks together.
Well, and so could you tell me really what is the sort of the proportion of these smaller, 300 a month offices versus, you have some stuff for the individual entrepreneur people, and that's probably for them. And then for the other small and medium enterprises, you may have other offices that will maybe allow more privacy or group interaction or whatever. But then you also have stuff that you probably planned for larger tenants. So could you sort of tell us how you thought about having the mix of different places?
Sure. Yeah. So to answer the first part of your question, it's probably about 50-50 between the one office type spaces for those startup or just folks that are smaller businesses. Like I said, we have smaller companies that we see and they need a diversity of options. And then the other half being folks that may have 3, 4, 5, 6 people and either a clump of offices together where you can easily put doors in or take some of, on the other half of the floor, some larger suites that we can use and set up a similar lease, and we'll just basically multiply the 300 by the 10 by 10 to figure out what that needs to be to cover operating costs. The larger tenants that are kind of mid-size would fit into the 500 building and the other buildings that are adjacent to the Frontier ideally. They would need to be a good bit larger, around 20 to 40,000 square feet to get each building kicked off. those have been a little bit more of a challenge because it does take some amount of capital to upfit these older buildings and be creative with them. But, you know, we're just a month in as far as launching the Frontier and really socializing what this opportunity can be. And we've had conversations with everybody from stage 2 companies that are looking for a, you know, 15 to 25,000 square foot use. And we've also talked to existing companies that have a need for 24-month swing space in particular, where they need to move people out and remodel one of the buildings and facilities that they have, and that this could be a solution for them to relocate into near term, but be close to their existing facility to do that new construction.
Well, you know, Mason, one of the things that I noticed, so you have your $300 a month smaller offices or individual office spaces. What I'm wondering about is your community space. And I note that when we were over at Cambridge Innovation Center, how they really view it is that they have some community space available there, and they just like throw it open, and anybody who really wants to use it can come in and do their own event. But what is your approach to either producing your own events or having outside groups producing events?
We do a little bit of both. We're seeding it with our own events. RTP 180 is kind of a TED Talk, fun, creative program that we have. We have a partnership with 1 Million Cups, the Kauffman Foundation, and we host that over there. We have food truck rodeos every Friday and a happy hour every Thursday. So we're seeding it with some things like that. But then we are also desiring and seeking and successfully pulling in the universities, biotech and IT and entrepreneurial groups that are in and around the Triangle to use this space, and they are doing that already. The universities hosted an event over there just last week. A local bio company is hosting a lot of their meetings over there. A lot of people from the technology entrepreneurial co-working spaces are using it. You'll go in there and people have their headphones on and they're typing away on their Mac. So it's a pretty good mix of folks, and we hope that that'll continue to evolve to the point where we'll continue to have some of our key programs, but again, keeping in mind that our real desire is to be that stage set that the community can come in and make it whatever they need it to be and open the doors that way.
Well, Mason, how are you working with the universities as far as supporting student startup groups and that kind of thing?
The way we're working with them is really in direct partnership. So as a lot of folks may know, we have our 3 Triangle universities, Duke, NC State, and UNC Chapel Hill. Their VPs of research and their provosts sit on one of our board, and then their chancellors and president sit on our primary board. So we have a direct connect into the universities themselves and have the conversations around how can we leverage and use this space to benefit them so that they can send students over that are oftentimes working at companies that are within RTP and outside RTP as a destination. So there's several specific things around research and student internships and things like that that we help to dive into and offer the space. But again, RTP is a little bit different as a university research park because we support all of them through our mission and we serve at their pleasure to help them be successful, but we're not a part of any one of the institutions. What we do is we work very closely with their leadership and say, you have said this space, this destination central location at the Frontier will be valuable. What can we do? What would you like it to do to be of benefit to you? And we'll develop different ideas and strategies that we're running with individual projects in partnership with specific entities inside each institution. So we don't have to own it. That's one of our big things. We don't have to be in the driver's seat. We want to help facilitate the greatness that they see as being the opportunity within RTP and help make that happen.
Well, so here's one thing I think it's a really interesting question, and it's being faced by like our parks all around the world, and that is, what is your kind of approach to the competition and or collaboration, or maybe one part one day and one part another day, with your local urban areas? So you have Research Triangle Park, and you also have areas like downtown Raleigh, downtown Durham, and how do you cooperate, collaborate, and compete with them?
We focus on the first two, honestly. The way that I go around and talk to our partners in Raleigh and at NC State with the great Centennial Campus at Duke University is that, you know, the triangle rises and falls on the success of each of us. The park, the cities, they've all earned over the past many decades through a lot of hard work their own brand and recognition and unique qualities and characteristics that makes NC State very different from Duke University and Chapel Hill very different from NC State. Same thing goes for the cities. The park is right in the mix there, and we have things that are very different and unique from what you would find downtown as they do. So we approach it in an extremely open and transparent conversation around recognizing that we can do things in the park that other people can't do and be a bit of that Switzerland in the triangle where NC State doesn't necessarily want to go to UNC Chapel Hill. They would love to meet in the middle and come to the park, and we use that as a great asset of being that neutral ground. We do that for the cities as well, and our economic development partners as being that neutral territory. And we found that when we approach it that way, people really embrace that. I mean, they can understand that yes, we compete on different terms. We all have different assets and strengths that we should leverage and grow. But a lot of that really comes down to the analogy I give is like a bunch of brothers or sisters being on the same sports team, right? You may want to hit another home run than your brother or your sister, but you're still going to look out for them. You still are going to win together, and you're still going to lose together. So the communication and practice and making sure there's alignment and overall vision and success has really been a key component and something that we've really tried to drive and pretty successfully as a key point in leading North Carolina forward, even beyond just RTP.
Well, do you view your role there as offering sort of a menu of choices for, let's say, a company coming into North Carolina or considering coming in? They're going to look at Raleigh, Durham. They're going to look at, you know, downtown or so forth and so on. And as you are working together, do you view that as sort of having the range of options for those companies?
Yes. I mean, it really is a situation where anybody that's been in economic development, we all do our part, we all do our sales, we all do talk about why our park or our location or our city is the best and the place that they need to be. Ultimately, I found that the cultural fit, the level of density, the amenities, the types of other companies that already exist there play a much larger role than any presentation I'm going to be able to give up that's whiz-bang about RTP. It's informative, and it helps to drive and encourage that company to locate here. But, you know, ultimately, we have found they make a decision. If they're going to go to a downtown urban area, then that's much more a Durham or a Raleigh question. If they're looking for more open space and being not necessarily in the center of the cities, then the park is going to make more sense. But the key piece to it has been that whether you locate in Raleigh, RTP, or in Durham or in Chapel Hill, you're going to be able to call Mason Ailstock and Bob Giolis within RTP from downtown Raleigh if you need something to help recruit new employees or develop a new partnership that would make sense and support everybody. So it's maintaining that level of appreciation and respect of where each one is coming from that's really found traction.
Well, great. Well, I want to thank you, Mason and Sanjeev, for sharing your work with us today. I know that you've been putting a lot of effort into this, and it's just looking at this is really amazing and so informative for everybody. So I want to also mention to everyone that if we didn't get to your question today, or if you have any other questions that come up after this session, please just email me. We'll be sure and get your question answered. And then I also wanted to let you know that the recording of today's session is going to be on our YouTube channel, and that'll be shortly. And as soon as that's all, you know, posted and so forth, we will send you the information on how to access that. And once again, to everyone, I want to thank you for participating today. Now, this is our virtual seminar, and we're going to be doing a bunch more virtual seminars throughout the year. But we also have some in-person ones, and those are the best ones. Everyone loves our in-person events just for the networking and seeing all the other friends that are involved in research parks across the world. So first of all, just to reiterate, we've got spring training coming up quickly in March 9th in Tempe, Arizona. Bioparks is going to be really good over at University City Science Center in Philadelphia. And then, of course, our international conference, end of September, that's in Buffalo, and they have been doing some amazing things in Buffalo. And we are really looking forward to going up there, seeing what they're doing, and learning some more stuff from them. So I want to thank everyone once again for participating, being a panelist, having conversations, submitting questions, and everyone working together to learn more about the exciting things going on at RTP. And we look forward to seeing you soon. So thank you.